The following is a presentation of Tuning into Sci-Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Small Council Matters podcast. I am Wendy Hembrock, and I am joined, as always, by our maesters to put this council in session. So let's go around the table and introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, I'm Christine from Michigan, your Mistress of Correction and Communication.
I am Jesse Jackson from Dallas, Texas, your Maester of all things happiness, sunshine. And I will have to do a plug, as this week when this comes out, I have an episode that I'm really proud of, Set Listing Bruce. I don't normally talk about it, but I talked to the writer of If I Could Remember, I Can't Remember If I Cried, Rock Widows on Life, Love, and Legacy. She talked to Judy Van Zant, Sandy Chapin, Crystal Zavon, among others, and it's a book all about rock widows and how they go with their husband's legacy and how they deal with that. It was a fascinating interview. I really am looking forward to reading the book, and so please check that out. And I'm on at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter X, and please follow me and tell me hi.
Hey everybody, this is Shannon from out in Vancouver, Washington. You can find me on Twitter at TNRLM, and I'm super excited to dig into a discussion about that spectacular episode 9.
I am Wendy. I am the maester of Google links and documents and all kinds of fun stuff like that to help us behind the scenes. We'd love to hear from you. We haven't had any Ravens recently, but we've got plenty of comments going in our Discord. So come on by and join that. We have a Game of Thrones channel specifically. You can also contact us on the socials at SEM_pod on X Twitter or at Tuning into Sci-Fi. You can come by our webpage and leave us a voice message, or you can call us at 706-927-8478. We are going to talk about Season 2, wrapping everything up. I can't believe it went by so fast. We'll talk about that, whether we think the show went by fast or not. And but to get things started first, we've got some news and links you can find in our show document. A couple of them are not mea culpas from Ryan Condal, the showrunner, but explanations for some information about Helena's powers, which we had talked about in our wrap-up show, because we have different kinds of powers that kind of all got mixed together in Damon's dream, or werewood dream, his vision, tapping into the werewood internet, whatever it was. He also talks about what has been called some of the battles to come, including the Gullet, which we know in Season 2 that there's a blockade and that's a strategic point from a sea invasion perspective. There's also an interesting interview with Fabian Frankel, who plays Kristen Cole, on the official HBO podcast, and he was actually very interesting to listen to, talk about his character and what's going on in the story. We also got some casting news for what we'll be watching while we wait for Season 3, which is Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I looked at this casting and was like, oh, a whole bunch of white guys that look like they probably fit in medieval clothes. And that was kind of all I thought about those actors, I have to say. And I also put in a link to an article from, I think it's Winter is Coming, it might be The Ringer, about what they considered the rank order of the Season 2 episodes. And I know this was a conversation in our Discord, so I figured folks might be interested to see where others ranked episodes.
So, Condal explains that the Battle of the Gullet was pushed to Season 3 because of the time and budget needed to do the battle properly. I am fine with that. I still would have ended on the shot of Rhaenyra with the dragon seeds behind her, because this whole season felt like it should have been was about them, with the insistence of including them in scenes so early in the season. That was an excellent dramatic conclusion to that storyline. Yes, there are Targaryen bastards. Yes, they can claim dragons. And Rhaenyra has them all! But then he kept going. I think it would have been a better ending. And it feels like if they want to open up season 3 with a battle, I don't know how I feel about a big battle in the first episode. It just feels too big, too soon. I think the big dramatic lead up to the battle in the first episode would have been better. And now it's just like, and we're here, and we're fighting. And it's like, I hope you guys watched the previously on, because it's been 2 years. So I took a look at that casting list, and you're right, it's a bunch of white guys. So much for the diversity of this show here. But I noticed the casting list included someone from Avengers Infinity War. But if Tom Von Lawler doesn't sound or look familiar to you, that's okay, because he played the CGI character Ebony Maw, one of the children of Thanos, the very chatty one with telekinesis. There is a lovely picture of him in a mocap suit straddling Benedict Cumberbatch. But don't expect him to look familiar in this upcoming show, because he didn't have a nose. As for the episode rankings, I disagree. I didn't read all the details, but I think they were valuing different points than me. So, yeah, I just basically disagree with that whole list.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the interview with the actor who played Kristen Cole. And, you know, he talks about, I don't know if I'd like Kristen Cole if I was him, you know? I mean, he was very, he was able to distance himself from the character. And I thought it was a really interesting interview. And they've had some good interviews this year. I think they've really have, being the official podcast, they are able to get the actors, and I think they really share a lot with them. Yeah, I had a boss years ago that said, these are reasons, not excuses. And I always think that's a powerful phrase. And when I'm having to deal with an upset client, I will use that phrase. These are reasons, not excuses. The bottom line is we did not do what we needed to do. We let you down, but I want to give you the reasons why that situation may have happened. Ryan is, and if I like your idea, Christine, but I wonder though, how do you do, because I think you needed to have the Damien storyline end this season. So how does that happen before you have the reveal of the dragons?
Oh,
I just
yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
Definitely. They could have rearranged so much of this. They could have left out some stuff and rearranged it.
Right. And the other thing, I'm curious, I am tempted to read the Night of the Seven Kingdoms novella just because I have not in any of these series read any of the books. And so I've always gone kind of unaware. And I'm kind of, since this is sort of kind of a self-contained, book, and it's not going to be multiple seasons, I wouldn't think, I'm tempted to kind of look at that. And I'd love, Shannon, as someone who has read every book, though I mentioned you, I think I remember you saying you hadn't read this one. I'm curious your advice on that. So, but as always, Wendy, you find us the best stuff.
Yeah, I have not. And matter of fact, I was just chatting on our Discord about whether I may or may not read the novella before the show starts. I like to read the source material if it's something that I think I'm going to be super invested in. If it's just like a one-off movie or whatever, probably not. But I am I'm big into the source material and the lore and whatever, whether it's Thrones or Lord of the Rings or, I read comic books growing up, and most of the novels that popular movies are based on, I'll try to read. But I also like being surprised, like Slow Horses on Apple is based on a series of novels. I haven't read them, and I like being surprised, and they're terrific. So I really haven't decided yet. it will, Jesse, if you do read the books, that I kind of know the general flow of them and who the characters are, because they are people from the past of the present of the Game of Thrones saga. So that there are people that have been referenced, just like Fire and Blood and House of the Dragon is in the past from the present of Game of Thrones. So there may be names that you recognize from having heard people talk about. But they're apparently very breezy reads and not like George's latter, especially latter 3 books that were, door stoppers. As for the rest of the links, I don't know if I necessarily agree with the episode rankings either. I kind of liked where the season ended. I know we had different descriptions of blue balls of not having a fiery climax with something, and it was a little more sedate. But I'm okay with where the various arcs ended and just preparing for what's coming next. And then I rewatched everything yesterday for some reason. It was on in the background. And those twin shots of like the face and then the long shot of both Alicent and Rhaenyra, I thought was just a magnificent way to end the season, since so much of this whole saga has been on those 2 ladies, and how it ended. And as far as the gullet may be, of all the things they do, the gullet may be the most complicated thing that they try, because you've got obviously dragons and you've got ships. And remember, whenever we tried to have the Greyjoys or Blackwater Bay or something in ships, that is so hard to do. And then this is like 80 ships against 80 ships and everything going there. So I'm sure it's going to be a vast technical achievement to pull that off. And I'd rather them take their time and do it right than try to have rushed it here. Although I will say, there's a lot. If we only do 16 episodes, there is a lot of stuff to cover. So the pace is going to have to be rather breakneck when we come back. So, all good stuff in there.
Can I just interject? Yeah. Jesse, did you say you want to do the homework for the next show?
I am thinking about it. And mostly because, Shannon has said, keyword, it's a breezy, easier read than when you're trying to do because I've tried to get through Game of Thrones and I kind of like get tired head and stuff. So I'm thinking about trying it to see if I can kind of get my reading palette adjusted to some of George R.R. Martin's like thoughts.
So you're dipping your toe into it instead of diving in.
And it's good when Jesse, homework assignments aren't due for a year.
Yes.
Jesse, I tried to read The Hedge Knight, which is the first book, and I couldn't do it. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it. It is short. That's one good thing. These are novellas, and there could potentially be a couple of seasons, because I think there's 2 or 3 of these novellas, but they'd be one and dones. They would be, a serial. It would not be, you could just jump into season 2, skip season 1, for instance.
I've ordered the Kindle to send me the sample. And so I will read the sample and I will go, oh, I'm enjoying this, or no, I'm not. And look for Discord. I will give the answer in Discord on whether I'm going to move forward or, as we say in Louisiana, crawfish and change my mind.
That's a great tease to lure people over to our Discord. So thank you for that. The thing I interpreted out of Condell's comments about why, we ended where we ended was really he had to come up with reasons other than throwing HBO under the bus, and also throwing himself under the bus because maybe his budget structure wasn't really good. I do have a critique this season about where they spent their pennies. It feels to me like you might have been able to get another episode out if you had done some things differently with some of your choices about, did you need to make Harrenhal that huge? Where they spent money on production, maybe those were, reasons why we had to see Damon a million times in Harrenhal is because, well, that's the set we built and we spent so much money in it, we have to use it, for instance. Because I do, going back to Christine's point about structure, we could have had a solid 7-episode season that ended on that very epic, all the dragons on Dragonstone moment, and also have gotten her having just flown back from Harrenhal, getting Daemon to bend the knee and reaffirm. We could have tied those things together, and that would have been a rock solid way to position us going into the season. But again, there's probably things we don't know about how the production was structured, how the writer's strike impacted things. One thing I did hear on, I think it was a podcast I was listening to, was because of the writer's strike, normally there'll be rewrites while you're in production, but because of the writer's strike, there weren't any. So they might have actually seen some problems that they just couldn't fix in real time because they were impacted by the writer's strike.
And oddly, they were not impacted by the actor's strike because most of their actors are from England or, other countries. So it was the U.S. actor's strike. And I think maybe there was a few actors who were part of SAG, but they got exemptions because the production was mostly a different union and not affected by the strike. So they were allowed by SAG to be able to act in the show.
Yeah. Yep. Good point. And the season 2 rankings in this article, the one thing that it leaned into was the not liking the Daemon and Harrenhal story. So that I think was definitely a factor, which other than the Oedipal mom part, which in hindsight really could have been cut out because it was very irrelevant. I like that story because I like Matt Smith and I want to see him on the screen. And he's our number 1 credit, so people expect to see him on the screen, I would assume.
And honestly, you can't just go with Daemon was in Harrenhal.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, what's he doing there? We needed something.
Yeah. So I know that in that particular article, they considered the Daemon storyline to be, quote, tiresome, but mileage varies on that, which is what makes it interesting, I think. So check out those news and links, folks. We also got some listener feedback and comments, and Christine, our Maester of Communication, is going to give us a roundup.
Yes, I will. Very short feedbacks here, so I'm just going to read them straight out. Denise, she gave us a listen of our last episode and decided to give us her ranking of the episode's best to worst. So for number 1, A Sun for a Son. Number 2, The Red Sewing. Number 3, The Queen Who Ever Was. Number 4, The Red Dragon and the Gold. Interesting that you put that so low. Number 5, Small Folk. Number 6, Rhaenyra the Cruel. That was my least favorite. Number 7, The Burning Mill. And number 8, Regent. She also gave us predictions for season 3, but I have decided to skip this because there may be spoilers for non-book readers. I got a little way through it and I was like, whoa, I don't want to read this. But if you're interested, please go to Discord and check that out. Thoughts on her list, guys?
I read that and I had different, I think it's certainly, overall, I think this was a pretty consistent season. And so I had a little bit of trouble of picking, and when we get to our details, of what was the best, what was the least favorite. But yeah, I think there's certainly, when I looked at some of these, I went, oh yeah, that makes sense on why they picked that.
Yeah, we don't line up eye to eye. Matter of fact, I had A Sun for a Son as my lowest ranked rated episode of the season. But when I was looking at this for the discussions we're going to have here in a minute, I think probably because that was the first one of the season, I graded it a little lower to allow room for growth. I just didn't want to come out and say, oh, that's a 10, then everything has to be a 10. But other than that, they're kind of close. I think we agree on loving her 2, 3, and 4, the Red Sewing Queen, whoever was, and Red Dragon and the Gold as really good episodes. And I read through some of the predictions, and I shan't comment on them.
But you can read them on Discord and comment there if you want. Thank you, Denise, for your rankings and your predictions. I also started reading them, and then I was like, no, I gotta stop. I did not rank A Sun for a Son as high as you did, but the others, your number 2, 3, and 4 were definitely my top 3. And Regent was my lowest ranked episode too, so I'm in agreement on that part.
Okay, so we also got a comment from Chris. He did it our episode style here. Highlights. The acting was excellent all around. Some standouts: Matt Smith, Emma Darcy, Olivia Cook, Eve Best, Steve Toussaint. If you ask me, that's basically all the main cast. All the adults. Excellent production values, wonderful settings, the dragons, music, etc. Very strong writing, and it was easier to follow the story without the time jumps and actor changes we had in season 1. Obviously, yes. Much more linear this season, I agree. His lowlights, mostly minor. The Alicent scenes in the forest. I agree, Chris. Rhaena wandering around the Vale looking for a dragon. Yes. We're on the same wavelength here, and especially on this one. Somewhat disappointing finale. I'll say here that I agree with Christine. Yes! Sorry. That the Lannister and pirate scenes were good, but didn't belong in the finale. An episode or 2 earlier would have been better. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And he thanks us for a great podcast and hopes that we pod about A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms next year.
Well, Chris, we weren't going to, but now that you've asked us, I mean, we've got to. So thank you for that.
It's all your feedback. Thank you. See what you can do with feedback, folks?
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with the lowlights, though I'm trying to be kind and live up to my reputation, unlike I was Mr. Grumpy earlier in the season, of trying to give grace, that we needed to show somehow that Alicent, changed her mind for that final, discussion and that meeting. But yes, it feels like there could be a better way to do that. Totally agree with the searching the Vale looking for a dragon. That was by far the weakest, that does not serve that storyline well. It doesn't serve the actress well. Heck, it doesn't serve the dragon well. So I think they put themselves in a ditch, and I'm curious what they're going to do season 3 to get them out of that. But yeah, thank you so much. And I will echo that one of the reasons why I would rank this season a little bit better than the first season is the consistency of the actors. Understand why they had to do it, and when I rewatched season 1, I enjoyed it, and it wasn't as confusing, but this was a little bit easier because we had that consistency.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback, Chris. I agree with just about everything you said there. I won't, because we're going to talk about some of this later, especially the acting and production values and whatnot. The Alicent scenes weren't long and certainly didn't feel as long as the Rhaena scenes. I don't know how many we had to have of that. And I'm still like, where'd those kids go? Who cares? Where's that dragon? Just that boggles my mind that they went there with that. And yes, thanks for your suggestion about Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I hope we'll all be doing this around this time next year.
So thank you, Chris, for the comments. I very much agree about the excellent performances we've had this season, for sure. And production values. They've spent a lot of money. It shows, especially in the dragons, the sound effects, the visual effects. And it is easier to follow the story because, unlike Game of Thrones, we don't have a cast of 100 characters. We only have about 10 or 12 characters that we're really tracking from week to week. You gave a shout out to Eve Best, who I want to give an extra shout out to. And for me, in hindsight, when I think back to season 1, I kind of wish that we had had another time jump and we actually spent more than a minute in the Council of Jaehaerys when she gets set aside, to have actually spent a little bit more time with those characters before she is set aside, because that actually is really important to so many elements of not just her character, but all the dynamics that are in this story. You know, they're pressing so hard on the women who are in this story, and I think she deserved more story coverage because it's a great character and a great performance. Obviously they didn't know that maybe when they were writing it, but in hindsight, I would have liked a little bit more about our queen who never was overall. And I completely agree with your lowlights as well. So thank you again for the feedback. And your question about hoping that we would talk about A Night of Seven Kingdoms is what stirred us to have a little more serious discussion about it. So I think Shannon was joking when he said come by Discord and lobby, but it does work. So if there's something you want to hear us talk about further, come by Discord and lobby us. So now we're going to head over into our main discussion. And first up, folks will recall we did predictions in our pre-show. And now Shannon is back to go through the receipts.
Okay, as you guys recall from that initial episode, we had two main buckets of predictions. One was, will this person or this dragon live to the end of the season? And then the second was, do you have any other predictions for that character? So we had 18 characters and 10 dragons, and I'm going to run through these really quickly and tell you what's right and what's wrong, and then each of our maesters will have a chance to comment on their thoughts as we get there. So a yes means they predicted them to live through the end of the season. A no meant they thought they would die by the end of the season. So with Rhaenyra, Christine said yes, Jesse said no, Wendy said yes. Christine said she'd have an affair. Jesse said she would, because he thought she was going to die, her death of honor would serve the kingdom. And Wendy said she would commit extreme violence. Council.
Yay, I win. And that's about the only time I won on this. I honestly, when I said she was going to have an affair, I was really going with the idea that Daemon sucks as a husband. And, that, Rhaenyra is a strong woman and has a history of having an affair. I did not have on my bingo card that it would be with Mysaria. I did not see that coming, and I'm glad I didn't try to predict who the affair would be with. So I am pleased with this. I think if Jesse had gone back and changed his mind, knowing that we weren't talking about the end of the show, but just the end of the season, he would have said that she lived. So I'm giving him a pass on that. And I don't know. I still say that Rhaenyra committed extreme violence because that red sewing could have gone much differently. But I mean, she didn't do it directly and maybe not intentionally. So I'll give you that.
Yes. As you guys heard live, as I was doing this in the middle of it, oh wait, you're just doing the middle of the season. I totally misunderstood. So I'm just going to skip this part because I've seen how we end, and I'm in third place. I get a bronze medal, but only because there's only 3 people in the race. You know how every once in a while, for those of you who exercise, like do 5Ks or 10Ks, you reach the point where you're at the age group where there's not that many people. And so you medal, and like, how many are in your age group? Let's just don't ask about that, okay? So I'm taking that I got a bronze, and I'm going to be proud of that.
Yay, Jesse.
And you should be. I think that I think Rhaenyra did commit extreme violence because her team went out and killed a little kid in his bed. And she
did not approve that.
Well, But I rewatched that episode, right? And so she comes back to talk to the council. She's found Luke's remains, and they all go around the table and they're all offering, what we should do next. And her answer is, I want Aemond for what he did. So she wanted revenge. That was what she wanted. So to me, she did sanction that in some way. And not even forget the red sewing, which was just kind of cavalier at the body count, that was happening in front of her.
Yeah, that wasn't exactly a kitten adoption. I get your point there on that one. Okay, so next we have Allison Hightower. Christine said yes. Jesse said no. Wendy said yes. Christine said she would have a secret meeting with Rhaenyra. That was a good call. Jesse said men's fences with Rhaenyra, and Wendy said isolated from family council.
Well, I actually, secret meeting with Rhaenyra, I pulled that one out of nowhere. Like, I remember when I said it, it was like a revelation as I was talking. I was like, cause they really seemed like they wanted to like mend things before all this, throne confusion started, and, they're reasonable people. Alicent tries to be a reasonable person, and it just seemed like a good idea, and it happened twice. I was like, wow, look at that. I did not, it wasn't even in the book, so nobody could have seen that coming, and I'm so proud of myself for that one. And, I know we've got kind of on the fence, whether, they mended fences. I'd say the supplies are there to mend the fence, and we just gotta wait till next season. So that could still happen, Jesse. It could still happen. And definitely, Alicent got isolated from her family. Wendy, good call. I guess I just didn't even want to look into what's going to happen with that family because they anger me, and I didn't want to look at it. But you got it.
Yeah, I would, kind of argue that at least by that second meeting, we talked about in the first one. It's too late. We quoted Carole King. But I think in this one, I do feel like they were trying to end by, hey, she said you can kill my kid. And if that's not making up friendship, what is?
Well, they're not riding off on her dragon together, which was sort of the implication that Alicent was offering, which was a big throwback to season 1. Great call, Christine, on the secret meeting. That was definitely not on my bingo card. And that we had it twice. I think that's a great prediction. And I think Jesse should at least get half a point for the mend fences, because they did come to some, well, we'll see what happens, right? They came to an understanding in the first meeting, and then in the second meeting, they're trying to, again, minimize the violence. And I think that was the calculus in Alicent's head about, well, if we just get rid of Aegon, then there won't be, another faction of weeds popping up that will prolong the war.
And I love those secret meeting predictions because those are not in the book. And not only did we get one and we all commented what a showstopper it was, we got an encore. And that was also a showstopper. Those actresses killed it, and that was a good prediction. That brings us to Daemon. Christine said yes. Jesse, bloodthirsty Jesse in that predictions episode, said no. And Wendy said no. As for predictions, Christine said a duel with Aemond. Jesse said Aemond kills Daemon. And Wendy said Aemond kills Daemon.
Yeah, Daemon was not doing so well in the predictions area, but I was just going off of, TV rules. I mean, Matt Smith's the lead actor in the credits. Everybody loves him. He's the doctor. To me, that's the moneymaker. And if they can keep him alive, they're going to. I don't think he'll make it to the end of the show, especially since Alice Rivers has predicted that he would die in Harrenhal. Although that's all she said, you will die in this place. I mean, he could die 80 years old, and he just happens to be there when it happens, so who knows what that means. But, we all expected, the war to really start, like, really get going this season, so we were all thinking that these two, like, I still think these two have to meet in battle. They have to fight each other. I don't know if it's going to be on Dragonback or, with swords. I really hope it's with swords, because I'd like to see that. We get dragon fights a lot now. We're getting it, and it would actually be, a change of pace to actually see them on the ground, face to face, fighting each other. I want that. So I think these predictions are going to happen later on. I think all of our predictions were just that we thought things were going to move a little faster this season. So I still think these are good predictions.
Yeah, in the terms of if I was playing roulette, right, I'd say let it ride, right? Like, I would just double my bet on this, because if it's not in season 3, in season 4, you feel like that is destiny. That these two people that truly feel like two sides of the same coin are just destined to be together. What's the opposite of shipping? Whatever it is, I ship their battle, I guess. But yeah, I agree.
Battleship?
Hey, you sunk my battleship.
Yeah, there's definitely Chekhov's gun is in Harrenhal. We're going to see Aemond and Daemon around Harrenhal. I thought that would happen in this season, but we haven't gotten to there yet. So I'm with you, but Jesse, I'm gonna let this one ride into next season as a prediction for sure.
And Christine, as for Matt Smith being the lead actor, somebody asked Sean Bean about that. So Next on our predictions, we had Aemond. All three of our maesters said yes, that he would live to the end of the season. Christine said more murders and killings. Jesse said kills Daemon. Wendy said he does not take an eye from a kid. Maesters.
Wendy, that was a gimme. I mean, that was just so, like...
I had no other prediction, and I was allowed to say anything, so I did.
He totally took that eye and everything else last season. I thought that Aemon was just too skilled of a fighter, and he's like the next generation. I didn't think we were ready to lose him yet, because he's an intriguing character. And, I feel like they built him up that way because there's more to see of him. And, I was really just thinking that he would, be leading a lot of killing in battle from Dragonback, and he did that. Although, I don't think he, was in the front. He didn't lead the battle. He showed up last to the battle. And there was a lot of killing because of it. Yeah. And, an attempted killing. Yeah, an attempted murder of his brother, which was great. And if he had just tried a little bit harder, I would have gotten my next prediction.
Yeah, I would argue that somewhere there was a kid in that village that was burned that lost an eye, I guess, and then died. So, but yeah, it is. I like I said, I'm doubling down. I don't know if it's season 3 or season 4, but Aemon and Daemon are going to take each other, and who knows, maybe they'll kill each other.
Yeah, I mean, after we saw that dream of Daemon's in which he looks like Aemond, that's definitely coming to me. They've just foreshadowed that too many times for it to get past us.
Next up, we have Aegon, the King of the Seven Kingdoms. Christine said he would not make it. Close, but no cigar, although burnt like a cigar. Jesse and Wendy both said yes. Christine said more sexual misconduct than STDs. Well, if we think about sausages roasting on an open spit. That's probably not going to happen. Jesse said he would behave cowardly, and Wendy said he would be cut by the throne itself like Viserys was.
Oh, so we got a kind of a half point on cowardly there. He had liquid courage. That's one way to do it. And he wasn't cut by the throne. And he definitely, not only did he not have any sexual misconduct, I don't see that ever happening in his future, ever again. No possibilities of that. He was the first one that I killed off in my predictions because, well, first off, this is a Game of Thrones show, and there should be deaths. There should be a lot of deaths. I mean, that's what we've come to expect. And I find people who are stupid and act stupidly get killed. So it was a good bet, and I was almost there. We were almost there. He tried twice to kill him. Well, I don't know. He wasn't really trying to kill him that second time, just really driving the point into his chest with a ball. Balls. But I still feel good about my prediction. It wasn't a bad guess.
Yeah, I agree. And, I agree with just to pull the curtain a little bit, we mark these red, green, and then yellow, like, should we debate it? He did have the liquid courage, so I don't know if he was necessarily cowardly. He certainly, I wish I had now picked be horrible husband. So yeah, I don't know if I'd give me a point for that one either.
Yeah, I don't know if he's so much cowardly as just weak, right? Which was how he continually tried to describe himself as not being weak, but everyone around him definitely thought of him as weak.
Methinks he does too much.
Yeah, I mean, but he did need to be drunk to fly Sunfire into the battle, and he clearly had no real skill in the battle. And his massive relief when he initially sees Vhagar was quickly turned to something else. I thought he would be cut by the throne and slowly degraded, similar to Viserys. He has very similar injuries to Viserys in a lot of ways in terms of how incapacitated he is. But it wasn't actually caused by the throne. It was caused by his brother and Vhagar. So it was an interesting turn for his character for me.
Yeah, and he was fleeing the scene at the end of the season, although that's mostly Larys dragging him away. That's kind of that, and the liquid courage and whatever is kind of the yellow half-point range. Next, that brings us to Otto Hightower. Christine said yes. Jesse said no. Wendy said no. Christine said he would be in prison. Ding, ding. Jesse said Rhaenyra's son kills him, and Wendy thought that Aemond and Larys would kill him.
I don't even know how I got there. I don't even remember. I have to go back and listen. Like, how did I get that? That was just like one little scene at the end of was that even in the book? Again, I don't know what I was thinking.
Nope.
Maybe I was thinking back to Tyrion. He was Hand, and then they imprisoned him. So there's a thing. So, and I'm the only one who had him living too. It was like, nah, somebody like him isn't like, he's too smart to get killed unless somebody is just, in a manic rage and, kills whoever is nearby, like poor Lord Beesbury. So, I don't know. I stumbled onto this, guys.
But it's a great, just talk about hitting a long shot. I love that. And it's it's almost a last second shot, right? Because it's toward the end montage and you go, what? Wait, what? And so at the last minute, you get the point. Well done.
We don't even know who's got him.
Yeah, no, that was a great great prediction, and very intriguing the way they just dropped that in, kind of out of nowhere. We hadn't even really heard anybody ask about Otto. Alicent, I think she asked her brother back in like episode 4 or 5, hey, have you heard anything from Dad? I don't have any letters. And then Aemon tells Larys, go find Otto to bring him back to be my hand. But we don't really even see any follow through on that. So that's intriguing about who has him and where is he, for sure. I thought he'd be killed because of a plot, right? Either, that he would be, basically an antagonist with, Aemon, and Larys, scheming that, he'd get killed. So it wouldn't necessarily have been that it could have been very well accidental, or, you walk in the middle of something and now we have to kill the witness kind of scenario.
Next, that brings us to Corlys, the sea snake. Christine said no. Jesse said no. Wendy said yes. Christine thought he would die in battle. Jesse thought he would make a sacrifice for his grandkids, sacrificing his life. And Wendy said he would step up for Rhaenys.
So I was back to trying to kill off people Game of Thrones style and trying to put some logic into it. House Valyrian is not in Game of Thrones. We don't see them at all. They're not mentioned. That tells me eventually that house dies. That all of them are gone. And since they don't even talk about them at least once in Game of Thrones, I have to imagine they died a long time ago, so I was killing them off early. Did not happen. I still think it could happen once the war gets going, because, I said dies in battle. His ship was getting basically rebuilt the whole season, so he didn't have a chance to go out into battle. I still think it's possible. Even though now he's hand to the queen, I think he'll still go out there and fight, because that's what he does. He's the sea snake.
Yeah, well done, Wendy. That's a twofer, right? Not only did you correctly say that he would live, but you called what kind of his arc would be. The only thing left is finally acknowledges bastard kids. And then we would have thought, okay, you do have supernatural powers.
That would have been a half point, because, he at least said to Alan that, he started talking about our bloodline doesn't blah, and I'm like, oh, was this an acknowledgement? Sort of, kind of.
Yeah, he said in the blood. He didn't say our blood, he said the blood. Yeah, to me, his arc from season 1, when he came back after being gone for 6 years, and Rhaenys was like, I've been holding this stuff down for you. And, she definitely was keeping score from that perspective. And so that was my thinking around why he would have to finally step up and get in line and much more follow were her lead versus just running off and doing his own thing, which he almost tried to do in season 2. And his granddaughter was like, no, why don't you stay and be the hand and remember that your wife was also a princess, and, you have bigger picture. So Christine, I think your die in battle is one of those things that's probably coming. And actually, I kind of agree, because when I rewatched some episodes and that finale, when Alan says, if I live through this war, I'm going to do it on my own. I'm not going to ask for your help. I think Corlys is going to end up having no heir to Driftmark out of this eventually.
And so that brings us to the Mrs. Rhaenys, the queen that never was. Christine said no. Jesse said yes. Wendy said no. And then the character predictions, Christine said would die of a mishap. Jesse said another dragon surprise, much like she did at Aegon's crowning. And Wendy said becomes the hand.
So close, Wendy. So close on that becomes the hand. I mean, she was acting his hand. I'd give you a half point for that, because I mean, not that you need it with these predictions here. It's like you read that book or something.
I have not.
Yeah, I wish I had really thought through what I said. I didn't want her to die in battle. I wanted her to die of something else, but I should have really paid attention to the character and should have known she would have gone out that way, like a true dragon rider. And I feel like I did her a disservice by saying that, even, thinking that for a brief moment. She was awesome.
Your dragon being bit in half doesn't count as a dragon surprise? Just, sorry. Yeah. Truly, and as we're watching this, there was not as much main characters dying, and not just because I was bloodthirsty at the beginning, but because of this is a Game of Thrones universe, the expectation is they go through a lot of characters, and they haven't done that yet. I just think of everyone, this is the character I'm going to miss the most and the saddest that we lost her. And I think that's important, because if you're going to lose characters, you want them to be ones you care about.
Yeah, well said, Jesse. I mean, I think you could argue that was a dragon surprise. The way that Vhagar came up on Meleys, for sure. She certainly didn't expect to be fighting two dragons in that battle. But I completely agree with your point about her being a very important character. Her death was meaningful and impacting. I think it's going to have a long-term impact as well. I also think we are going to see a lot of people drop out. Maybe slower than I would have expected, but I don't think there's going to be too many people left standing at the end of this thing.
That brings us to Kristen Cole. Christine said no. Jesse and Wendy said yes. The predictions, Christine thought his temper would get him killed. Jesse said he would call Rhaenyra, see you next Tuesday. And Wendy said he would lose Alicent's favor.
So yeah, I was going off of my my usual idea of that people who act stupidly will get themselves killed. And, in the previous season, Kristen Cole was really stupid. He had temper issues, and I was seeing stuff in the trailers that implied that he was going to continue having temper issues. I did not think that he was going to start having an affair with Alicent, which I think tempered him a bit. And then after that 4th episode, where he saw Dragon Battle for real, his demeanor has changed, like, significantly. He is, like, much more subdued, and it's not even the same character anymore. I feel like I was predicting for the wrong character. I disagree with the losing Alicent's favor, because he literally still had it in his hands. The actual favor. I don't know. I think there's hope for those two crazy kids yet.
Yes. It is. Cole was an interesting character and has had not my favorite character arc, but an interesting arc. And so I'm curious to see what season 3 brings for him. They certainly, I do not know if he makes it back from battle, is she going to be welcoming him in her arms? So I would go, she's lost her favorite, even though he does have her booby napkin that he's treasuring.
Yeah, I think that they are done, at least from Alicent's perspective. Clearly, Cole is suffering from dragon traumatic stress syndrome, what they used to call shell shock in the old days. It was really, I rewatched that episode and that little speech he gives, and it's almost comedic. It really is the fog of war for him in terms of this fatalism he has about what they're up against, and the recognition that war is going to be completely transformed. So they've kind of set a very high bar now for what that's going to mean. I hope they can pay it off.
That brings us to Helena Targaryen. All three of our maesters said yes, she would make it till the end of the season. Christine said she would make more predictions and get listened to finally. Jesse said she would not be heard, and Wendy said she would suffer from Cassandra syndrome. Maesters.
So, definitely she had more predictions. Sometimes they were really hard to spot because of the way she says them. You know, like, I'm afraid of the rats, and then later on it's actually the rat catcher that comes in there, and, you know, those guys are rats anyway. But, yeah, I think that she is getting listened to, but actions can't be done about them just yet. I mean, I feel that that Daemon listened to her in that last vision he had, but we can't really know for sure. Oh, I lost you guys for a second there. Yeah, I think Daemon listened to her in that last vision he had, but we can't really know for sure what she meant by "you know what to do." Only really he knows what she meant by that. So I don't know if he acted on it, whatever she was saying, or if he acted on it because she said that. It's a vague area. Cassandra syndrome, which, you know, meaning that she's telling people what will happen and nobody believes her. I don't know. I think I disagree. I think that people are believing her. But again, it's like we're left hanging at the end of that one. We don't really know how people are reacting to her predictions at this point. Like, Aemon really looked like he believed what she was saying and was scared of what she was saying, but he can't act on it, so we don't know if he actually believes her. So all we get is a reaction on the face. These are so vague, and I think it's because this stuff wasn't really in the book. I mean, the predictions she had, the dreaming thing, it's not something a historian would find, so it's a nice gray area they get to play in. And they leave it gray because we don't want any lasting actions because of it.
10 predictions in, and finally I get a double green. Yes! Don't call it a comeback, baby! Yeah, this was very nice to see. And, you know, what I think is going to be interesting next season is not only because of the article they're talking about, but, you know, she seems to be getting a little more centered. And I almost get the feeling that she's understanding the voices and the visions that she's getting so that she can separate them better. And, you know, considering there's no training for this, that she's having to learn this on her own, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I was happy to see that finally I got a couple of things right, and yay me.
Yay, Jesse. I think that she evolved, right? In the beginning of this season, you know, when she tells Aegon, you know, there's rats, I don't know what's going on. She is sewing the thing that's going to be covering her baby. She's not, I'll say lucid, coherent, so she's still not believed at that point, but something happened to her. I don't know if it was all the crickets got killed and that was the thing that was blocking her from being able to discern her visions or what. I mean, I think it's more likely that somebody in the writer's room said, let's make her more like Bran, and they started just doing it. Maybe it was her panic attack. Maybe she literally got a giant download of information when the crowd was swarming her, and maybe that was the point. That would be interesting to actually try to go back and see where is the point at which she turned in terms of being in control of her visions versus, or having some agency over them versus just being overtaken by them. But I think that did happen this season, so to me, her character has actually been one of the most interesting ones this season.
And that brings us to Bela. Christine said no. Jesse said no. Wendy said yes. Christine said she would die in battle on a dragon. Jesse thought Aemond would kill her, and Wendy did not have a prediction for Bela.
Again, I'm back to people have to die, and sadly, Game of Thrones was a very whitewashed cast, so I'm killing off people to get that bloodline of whitewashed cast in the future. Also, it would have been really tragic because Jace lost his brother, then he loses his cousin/fiance. God, I love this family. And I'm gonna let it ride on dying in battle on a dragon, because that still seems like a very Bela thing. Because I mean, she actually stated that's how she would want to die, so let's give it to her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I picked her for the very reason that it would be even double tragic for Jace. That he would not only lost his brother, but he lost his betrothed. And so, and I'm happy because I do think she was a character that was underserved this season. So I hope she gets a better storyline next year.
Yeah, I didn't think that she would die because we do need cannon fodder, and I feel like she's being treated like that as a character because she's basically around to prop up Jace or to be the person that Rhaenyra can give an order to, but other than the one scene where we saw her doing surveillance and trolling Kristen Cole, we haven't seen much of her, so I do think she's probably going to die in battle because she said she wants to when she was talking to her grandfather, and that's definitely the trend with the ladies of House Valyrian.
Well, this brings us to our favorite storyline of Season 2, Rhaena Targaryen. All three of our maesters thought she would live to the end of the season. Christine said she would get a dragon. Jesse thought she would have a love story. Wendy thought she would get a dragon, probably Sea Smoke or Vermithor.
So, we all thought she would live because we all thought she was too unimportant to die. Yeah, we were all right. Yay, I guess. And, we're still a little iffy on getting the dragon, although it seems like a fair bet. I mean, why? I swear to God, if they wasted all that time showing her find that damn dragon only to kill her, or, not get the dragon, I might be done with the show, because that's just bad writing. But I say we win Wendy. We totally, she gets the dragon. We're just waiting for the next episode.
You get a dragon, you get a dragon, you get a dragon. No. This was, we've talked about, this was when we break down in a week about bad storylines, this leads my choice. I really did think that since Luke had died, they were going to do something with her, and I said, well, maybe it's too soon to get a dragon, and I really did thought we might get some kind of subplot of a love story, but no luck there at all. So, well done for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we think she's going to get a dragon, right? She hasn't gotten the dragon, which is why we only got half a point. I didn't think that Sheepstealer would be the potential dragon, because I don't even know if I knew what that was. I don't even know if that dragon had been named. And to me, it would have been very poetic if she had gotten Sea Smoke, because that was Laenor's dragon, and Laenor meant so much to her mother. But it also would have been awesome if she got Vermithor, because that was the one that got away from her dad, as well. So, who knows? But I do think that we'll see her get a dragon, and maybe something will pay off of her story, because so far the character's definitely been underserved thus far. And, they made something that should be a positive turn out to just be a terrible slog to get through for the audience.
Maybe it's a half point, Jesse, because she sure did love running aimlessly through the countryside.
Yes.
So,
Heathcliff, I'm here. Kathy, it's me, Kathy. I'm thinking of Kate Bush videos.
Okay, so that brings us to Jace. Christine said he would make it. Jesse on his bloodthirsty trail said no. Wendy said yes. Christine said that he would propose to his brother's fiance. Jesse said Laris would kill him. And Wendy said he would marry Bela.
You know, I didn't even think about, like, how was Laris on Team Green gonna kill Jacaerys on Team Black? I mean, of all people, I want to, like, if you can remember what was going through your head at that moment, aside from, you know, blood and glory, let the bodies hit the floor. I actually was worried about this one. I was like, you can't keep killing so many people, but I felt like Jace should die, because it just seemed like an obvious thing, but I was like, I can't keep killing people off, so I'm glad I guessed right on this one, even though I wasn't feeling it. And my guess that he would propose to Rhaena was based on Bela dying, but, you know, honestly, time for romance is gone. I don't think anybody's marrying anybody right now. Not until things calm down for a bit.
So I thought that it would be poison, or similar the way that he killed his father and his brother, that through manipulation he would cause his death, is what I was thinking. Not that
so, like,
he would
hiring somebody to do it.
Or through trickery or some kind of poison or something. So that's what I was thinking, to make him even more despicable. But no luck. No luck for Jesse.
Yeah, I really had no good guess for what might happen to him, which is why I was like, well, we need a wedding, right? And in Game of Thrones tradition, that could really take an interesting turn of events, of things that happen at weddings. So, you know, we might have been able to see him really step up or do something. But I definitely thought he would live, because he is her heir. He's too important to die this early in the story to me.
Okay, that brings us to Mysaria. All three of our council members said she would live to the end of the season. None of them said she would make out with the queen and slightly improve her accent. Christine says she would play both sides. Jesse said she would betray Daemon. And Wendy said, like the Boltons, would perform a double cross.
So definitely didn't play both sides. She solidly landed on one side, which I feel iffy about that. I mean, like, one of the reasons I didn't see the affair coming is because I didn't think the trust was there, and it still doesn't feel like they've earned the trust. I don't know why. I mean, she's been doing everything she's supposed to do if she's on Rhaenyra's side, but although I think it was still a little iffy if you call that betraying Daemon. I mean, you know, she's making out with his wife. So, yeah, I think we should throw Jesse a half point for that one. Good call, Jesse.
I will take your pity points. Yeah, this was someone who I cared nothing about in the first season, and was kind of surprised that, we saw her kind of at the early, then we saw her toward the later episodes, and she's turned into a really interesting character. And, I think that key moment was when, she's leaving and she sees, Eric coming and going, okay, and makes the decision, calculating perhaps that it's going to benefit herself, but she does make the right decision. So I think this is fun, and it's been a good character. And yeah, I think you almost say she has double crossed, because, she kind of was on Team Green and now she's on Team Black. And so, but yeah, I don't know if you're going to go long term with her. And I do think it's going to be interesting when Daemon comes back and there she is, and like, oh yeah, and I've got the ear and perhaps more of your lovely bride.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I can't tell if she's Littlefinger or Varys. I still can't tell. But she had a great plan in terms of winning over the small folk with food. We'll see how long that holds up if they keep restocking, if they're on a monthly plan for shipping.
A subscription you can never cancel.
There you go.
Hello Dragonstone, as opposed to Hello Fresh.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that brings us to Lara Strong. All three of our council members said that he would make it till the end of the season. Christine said he would get even grosser with Alicent. Jesse said he would break up with Alicent or break with her. And then Wendy said Alicent would call on him for a favor.
So we all thought he would live because cockroaches survive. And definitely we were right about that. I honestly, I don't know, like, there wasn't much time between seasons. They made that clear that Viserys hadn't been dead for more than a couple of weeks. And so, like, it wasn't that long ago that he was getting foot favors from her, and suddenly she's with Kristen Cole, and it's like he doesn't, like that little relationship didn't exist anymore. So I don't know why. Maybe it was simply because she was no longer the queen. She was the Queen Dowager, and it was like instantly, you're no longer my meal ticket. I'm moving on to this person. So maybe that's how the break happened. But Jesse, good call on that.
Thank you. This is my second green and green. So I was only 2 out of the 18 or 19 choices. Yeah, I just had a feeling that he is a schemer and would have gone towards someone else with power. And I think he will continue to do that, right? Even this, as we debate why is he trying to help, Aemon the Crispy, is because he thinks he can manipulate him and later get more power. And I was going to make the same joke about a cockroach, because yeah, he's just despicable. Yeah,
he definitely had to live because he is a cockroach. He's going to be very, very hard to kill. He makes himself useful to people in order to realign himself with power. There does seem to be something personal between him and Aemond, where he'll be very reluctant to align himself back with him. So I don't see that happening, but he could come back around with Alicent down the road. I was surprised at how quickly Alicent flipped that relationship, because it was very much the opposite in terms of him manipulating her in season 1, and she pretty much shut him down right away after she moved on to Kristen Cole.
That brings us to Jason Lannister, and oddly, we only had a couple of scenes with Jason Lannister this year and spent more time with his brother Tywin, or Tolan. Tylan, yes.
Tyrod.
Tyrod.
So, Christine and Jesse thought Jason would not make it to the end of the season. Wendy thought he would. Christine said death by hubris. Jesse said Daemon causes his death. And Wendy said if he's dead, he's killed by Rhaenyra.
Wendy, I feel like you were putting your chips on red and black there. Or black and green. I'm gonna let it ride on death by hubris. It's just gonna take a little longer on that one. Honestly, just having his name on this list is like, oh, so he comes back. Okay. But seriously, the signs are there. Him showing up with his army and send Aemond a message telling him to come to Harrenhal, and then we'll ride. Wow. So yeah, the death by hubris is still on the board. It's just, like I said, we didn't expect this season to take so long to get to where it's going. It'll happen.
So I want to make sure I got it right. This is the guy that brought the lion to the dragon fight,
Yes.
not the one that had to get that had to got in the mud fight, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, because the mud fight guy didn't even make our list. I was going to say, if someone says has a mud fight with a pirate, I'm going to like, okay, you are doing dark arts. I still think that mine's a good bet. I think Damon will end up killing him, and it will be because of his hubris. I think that's it.
I think I'm gonna get even more specific and say the hubris involves a lion.
Wait,
I think he should be eaten by his own lion.
Killed by his own lions. That's I love it. I want that to happen.
That would be my that's my prediction for next season.
Death by sigil. So this brings us to Eric with an A, Cargill of the Greens. Christine and Jesse thought he would live to the end of the season. Wendy thought he would not. The predictions here, Jesse said he would switch teams to the Blacks, and Wendy said he would get dragon roasted.
Okay. Now my button's not working properly. So this is, I think it was getting a little late in the night, and I wasn't really thinking clearly. I forgot the big rule that if we're talking about it, then it must be important. And I was like, why would these guys die? You know, they're just Kingsguard. No, there's nothing important about them. What was I thinking? I wasn't thinking. It was late. So, I certainly would not have, even if I had predicted their deaths, it would not have been like, what was this, the first episode? Second episode. It was really early. And maybe it was because we already have too many identical twins in this show. Which, did anybody find that weird reading the books? Like, were the Lannisters actually called out as identical twins too? Because that's just weird. And, like, those two are easy to tell apart, even especially since it's the same actor. But, yeah, this was an interesting scene, and nobody predicted they would both die. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'm now the theme to Patty Duke show, but they're King Guards, identical King Guards. None of us non-book readers were, the two brothers are going to kill each other. I mean, I didn't have that at all. I thought one of them would die, and then the other one, out of anger, would switch over to kind of honor his brother. And this is better written to have these two people, kind of fight, because this is a civil war. This is, family against family. So I thought it was a really well done storyline for both of them. But yeah, it is, as Christine said, none of us predicted both of them to die. And I haven't been curious about anything at all, but I am curious after this, Shannon, if you just a few minutes, like, you knew this was going to happen, and what were your thoughts when you were hearing some of our predictions?
So, I didn't predict that both of them would die, mainly because when I was doing these predictions, I was thinking that they're kind of the observers of the royal family, on the inside, and often those characters take a different view of things. To me, it's very much like the Hound and the Mountain, and they had different alliances within Game of Thrones. They also had their own perspectives about, how well those folks were doing in their jobs and loyalty. So I was thinking that Eric with an A would get roasted, and that might actually change Eric with an E's view of, maybe what they were doing or how Rhaenyra was prosecuting the war. So that was wrong. But I wish I cared more about those characters. They didn't do enough to develop them as characters that I was really invested in. So I definitely appreciated the actual battle between them. But I think that that's an area where they could have done a better job of helping me be more invested in the characters.
To quickly answer your question, Jesse, yes, I think George was inspired by the Civil War tales of brother against brother, fighting on the Union and Confederate sides of the battle. And I did know these were coming, and I can't for the life of me remember if it was on Game of Thrones, the TV show, or in the books. There was somebody said something about the Cargill brothers killing each other. So it had been referenced before, and even if it was on the show, which of course we all watched, it was one of those quick little asides, somebody, maybe Tyrion was telling a story to somebody or something like that. But it had been mentioned before. That brings us to Eric with an E of the Blacks. Christine said yes. Jesse said no. Wendy said yes. And the only prediction was Jesse said that he would die. So another double green for you, Jesse.
Yeah.
Yay!
Doubling down. I don't know. That feels like a cheat. You basically said the same thing twice. Because I honestly said everything I had to say with the first brother, but Wendy, you mentioned the Hound and the Mountain, and I'm like, they did the same thing. They killed each other. I was trying to wonder if George is running out of ideas. Oh, wait, that's right. He won't finish this series, so he did run out of ideas.
Yeah, how some writers have daddy issues, some have mommy issues. He has brother issues, I guess. I do think this is kind of cheating because my only thing is dies, right? So that does seem like a little unfair prediction. But it is, I kind of like you guys, we've already talked about it, that storyline. And I am wondering, they're running out of king guards and both sides. And I wonder if there's any candidates who want to join this, because it's almost like Westeros red shirts.
Yeah, Jesse, I'm glad you went out strong with your predictions. You really rallied at the end there. And yeah, I don't know why anybody wants to be a Kingsguard at this point to backfill. I think it's going to be tough.
Okay, so that is all our human characters and brings us to our dragons. First up is Caraxes. Christine and Jesse said Caraxes would make it to the end. Jesse said no.
You get that mixed up. Jesse said yes, and Wendy said no.
I did. Thank you, Mistress of Corrections.
Yeah. That's my job. That's what I'm here for. I didn't know Daemon would basically be out of everything, off to the side doing his own thing, but, I didn't think Daemon was gonna die. I wouldn't think his dragon would die. I'm not gonna kill off our lead character and his dragon. Or his dragon. Gotta keep them together.
Yeah, I do not know why. I guess the thought was it's harder to kill a dragon than it is a former Time Lord, and a former, Prince Consort, in 2 different series. So yeah, but I'll take the green where I can get it.
Yeah, I had predicted Daemon was going to die, so I assumed he was going to go out in battle with Caraxes.
Okay, that brings...
I think Jesse, maybe you thought Aemon was going to kill him in a hand-to-hand duel like I had mentioned, so, his dragon wouldn't be involved.
So that brings us to Rhaenyra's dragon, Syrax. Everybody said no on this one, which is interesting. And then Christine said that Rhaenyra would get Vermithor, and Wendy said the same.
I'd have to go back and listen to see why I decided that her dragon and not her would get killed. Maybe I was just really focusing on That poster with her standing in front of, I think it was Vermithor, and, it seemed like they were pushing for that. So, it didn't seem like anybody's really claimed 2 dragons at once, so I thought something's gonna get her dragon killed, but not her. She's somehow gonna survive, because I can't see a dragon going into battle without their rider, but who knows? I don't know where I was coming from with this.
One of the things that I am noticing is I had no predictions whatsoever about the dragons, because the dragons before this season didn't seem like real characters to me. And this season is the first time that, maybe because they talk about them a lot, or because we had such great special effects in seeing it, but I understand a little bit more now why you would have asked these questions about the dragons, because before it just was asking, it didn't seem to, it wasn't significant to me. And now, based on the storytelling, I do. So yeah, I just think that's one of the things that I've changed this season as I've watched the show.
To me, Caraxes has always been a character. I think that dragon's really unique, and they showed it enough with Daemon in battle in season 1 that I very much identified that as a character. Cyrax, not so much. It was more visually making it distinct, but it didn't really have a personality to me. But to me, Caraxes has personality. I think it must have been the poster, Christine, because I was thinking, well, you have this giant Vermithor. Who should ride it? It should, to me, going into this, I was thinking, well, it should be Rhaenyra, right? She needs the biggest dragon that they've got. So that was my thinking about why she would get Vermithor.
Interesting points about the effect of the marketing and also about the personalities of the dragon. Good thoughts, y'all. Next, that brings us to Vhagar. Christine said yes. Jesse said no. And Wendy said yes.
So this one was back to logical thinking. I mean, Aemond was, very skilled in fighting and riding his dragon. I mean, he tamed this monster beast when he was just a child, and I did not see Godzilla going down just yet. I mean, I think Godzilla has to go down next season, maybe. That she is a monster. But I thought it was too early to kill off, the biggest threat so far.
Yeah, and I think this continues I thought Aemon was going to die, therefore his, the dragon was going to die as well, but obviously I was wrong.
Yeah, I definitely did not think that Vhagar would die, because it basically is the main threat for Team Green at this point. So it has to stick around. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a dragon war. We might have a land war.
This brings us to Sunfire. Christine and Jesse both thought that Sunfire would live to the end of the season. Wendy said no. And this one is a little interesting, and we awarded the points as we think they are. I even consulted with our Maester at Large, Sir Pat Spanagle, about this one. So what do you guys think about this one?
I think it's clear that Sunfire is dead. I mean, if he was still alive and very, very wounded, they would have mentioned it by now. I could have swore they had said that Sunfire was dead at this point. I know that Kristen Cole said he was long in the dying. The funny thing is, I had Aegon dying and not his dragon. I thought he would die because he was doing something stupid. I did not think he would be stupid enough to go into battle. I actually thought he would be too cowardly to go into battle on a dragon. So, I thought he was going to stay away from the fighting. So I thought Sunfire was safe. And I was wrong. His stupidity exceeded my expectations.
DWD, driving while dragoning, is never a good idea. Yeah, assumed that, once again, I thought that this would live, and we got it wrong. And I do think it's the right choice. Sunfire is unfortunately moved on to the Rainbow Bridge where all good dragons go.
So I had predicted it was going to be killed mainly because of something stupid Aegon would do that would get his dragon killed. And I kind of agree with Shannon's, he's been a little persuasive with saying, is he really dead? How dead is he? Sunfire might be a phoenix. He might have a resurrection coming. And I don't know the plot of Sunfire, but people have said Sunfire does really important things in the books. Maybe that's what's going to happen with Rhaena and the Sheep Stealer. Maybe Sheep Stealer's going to get the plot or something. I don't know, to make up for Sunfire being dead, but it seemed like Sunfire was important, but based on the comments I saw. So, maybe we'll have to check again next year to see if Sunfire is still dead. Or there could be magic. He could get resurrected somehow.
I'm not quite dead yet. So that brings us to Dreamfire, and everybody thought Dreamfire would make it to the end of the season.
This one I had a good reason for, because, I only know as a general fact that Helaena has a dragon. And it wasn't even brought up until the end of this season, I think, that she has a dragon. And they did mention that she doesn't really favor dragon riding. I'm like, do they even get along? Like, why does she have this dragon? Because I don't think she's even gone and visited it. She just hangs out in the castle with her bugs. So I thought it was a gimme that her dragon would live because she doesn't even do anything with it.
And I'm guessing that Sunfire and Dreamfire were egg, in the same egg batch, in that they were assigned or claimed as both Aegon and Helaena were young, and they've kind of grown up with them. So yeah, I didn't picture Helaena being a very strong dragon rider. So that was an easy, I think that was a pretty slam dunk. Like, yeah, that dragon's going to be fine.
Yeah, I don't remember my thinking. It was probably that I wasn't thinking she was really going to be a big part of the fight at this point.
Also interesting that the show has developed Helena's dreaming much more than the books did, and her dragon is named Dreamfire. So next that brings us to Moondancer. So Christine said no, Jesse said no, Wendy said yes.
Yeah, I think this comes down to us believing that Bela would die in Dragon Battle, and she hasn't yet. I am letting this one ride as well.
Yeah, it's a marvelous night for Moondancer. They continue to live, but I am not going to bet too much because I have a bad feeling for Bela and Moondancer for next season.
Yeah, I'll have a different prediction next season, but I really did think that they just needed bodies to fly around, and it's also somewhat tied to her character conflict with Rhaena, right? She needs to be alive to keep reminding Rhaena that she doesn't have a dragon and she's not important. So she has to keep flying around and being important so that Rhaena can be upset about it.
Okay, that brings us to Sea Smoke. All of our maesters thought that Sea Smoke would make it to the end of the season, and they were right.
Yeah, I feel like somebody mentioned that Sea Smoke would get a new writer. I don't know. Again, have to go back and check the transcript on that. But it seemed like a gimme. Didn't currently have a writer, therefore couldn't be going into battle just yet. So probably not going to get killed. I mean, the Greens had seen Sea Smoke flying around, and they did nothing about it. I mean, there's no one flying that thing. You could just go out and kill it and be done with it, but they didn't bother. So, yeah, there he is, living. And I'm glad, because the scene of him, the dragon choosing his rider, was awesome.
Yeah, I think that was exactly what we were thinking, right? There's no rider, there's going to be this person's in the wild. And you did get that great scene on the beach where they're kind of this, high noon staring at each other.
Yeah, I assumed it was going to live, so it would get a rider. I had predicted that Rhaena would get Sea Smoke or Vermithor, which hasn't happened.
Next up is Vermax, Jace's dragon, and all three of y'all said yes, the dragon would live to the end of the season.
This was reluctant on my part. I just basically went with, I said Jace would live, so his dragon probably lives, because I feel like if he dies, it's going to be on Dragonback. So I didn't feel strongly about this, but I couldn't kill them all off. Looking at this, I realized only 2 dragons have died, ? And I managed to fail to guess which 2.
Yeah, I think this was toward the end of the recording, and I'm like, okay, I've got to throw some positivity out here somewhere. And I really, I said, okay, well, we may lose Jace, but we'll keep his dragon.
Yeah, I thought we were going to not lose Jace, and I figured his dragon would live.
Next up is Vermithor. Christine said yes. Jesse said no. And Wendy said yes.
Jesse killing off the dragon before it has a rider. Amazing. We had definitely predicted earlier that Vermithor would get a rider, but we thought it would be Rhaenyra. And I figured it'd be too early to kill off the dragon since we'd have to get the dragon a rider first. And I was saving that for another season.
So I'm really bad at this game, and it isn't even like I guessed first, right? Like I should and I even talked about this. If you look, like I should be playing this game better, like you do the Price is Right, angle. I think my thought was because there was no connected rider that we may not even see them again. But I don't know why I thought that they would die, because I think it's obvious. Dragons don't die of old age, from what I understand. They just keep growing and growing and growing till
and going senile.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it would live because we hadn't seen it do anything yet. We just knew that it was the one to enchant that somebody was trying to ride, and it was really important. So for me, it has to live to get a rider and be in the battle.
And finally, rest in peace, old girl. That brings us to Melise. Christine said yes, Jesse said yes, and Wendy, just like she did with Rhaenys, said no.
Yeah, so Wendy, you got both the dragon deaths correct, although you predicted a little more dragon death in this show. I actually guessed that 2 would die. I just got the wrong 2. And because I had predicted that Rhaenys would die of a mishap and not in dragon battle, her dragon, of course, would live. But I was wrong, and it was a glorious death. And saddening, because we literally watched the light go from her eyes. It was sad.
Yes, that will be discussed in our wrap-up episode where we can talk about favorite scenes and favorite acting. All I just am happy to say is I'm glad we've gone through all the categories. I'm happy with my bronze medal, even though, like, I am way, like, the other 2 lapped me before I crossed the finish line.
Jesse, I'm just happy you're here to represent your country with pride.
People keep saying they want, an average person to compete in all these events so they can, have comparison.
There we go.
You are our average man, and you're very important to this.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you want to say something, Wendy?
No, I just wanted to comment briefly on Melise. One of the most well-articulated, characterized dragons in this season, it was really moving when she went into her last run with Rhaenys, and I was not happy to predict she was going to die, but it just seemed like she'd go out with her mom.
Yeah, I rewatched it again today. That was very sad. Well, that does it for our prediction. So I'll give you a summary of the totals. On the live or die, for the characters and the dragons, Christine had 17 correct, Jesse had 12 correct, and Wendy had 23 correct. On the other character predictions, Christine had 4, Jesse had 3, Wendy had 5. So that brings our grand totals. Jesse with the bronze medal in third place with 15 total points. In second place, the silver medal, Christine with 21, and with 28 points, our very own Alice Rivers, Helena Targaryen, the Green Seer of Death and Predictions, Wendy is our champion for the season 2.
Yay!
Oh, thank you. Yay. No weirwood trees were destroyed in the making of my predictions.
Wendy, I expect my weirwood tree tea in the mail.
For the medal ceremony, there will be a Pearl Jam song being played as she sits on the top of the podium.
And Wendy will be getting a lovely prize that I will send to her that is Thrones related, and she'll probably post a picture of it in the Discord.
I will. That would be very exciting.
So it's still a secret. I want to know, what is it? What's in the box? Aside from Aegon.
Again, that's something I shared with our Maester at Large, Pat, and he agreed that you would love it. So,
oh, good.
Nice. Very nice.
So thank you, Shannon, for being our master of ceremonies for this. This was a lot of fun. I hoped folks played along at home as well. This went a little bit longer than we originally planned. So this is part 1 of our wrap-up show, and we're going to come back and do part 2, where we'll talk about overall grades, best and worst episodes, favorite scenes, characters, all that good stuff. So that means you still have time to go into Discord and share some of those categories for yourselves, as well as maybe rank the episodes for the season. Before we go, I want to thank everyone for listening and stopping by Discord. We really appreciate it, and want to thank all of you for your support all through the season. I also want to thank our maesters, Christine, Jesse, and Shannon. It was a blast as always, and we will see you again soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
No dogs were harmed in the making of this episode.
Yeah, we didn't have the dog in the prediction, right?
No, there was no dog in the prediction.
The dog didn't exist yet.
Yeah, it's just an honor representing my country. So there we go.
We'd love to hear our listeners voice thoughts and send us feedback. Call us at 706-927-8478. Stop by our tuningintoscifitv.com blog to record a SpeakPipe message, or check the show notes and leave us comments. From the blog, you can also find links to forum discussions and subscribe to our RSS feed. Call in to our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV Skype account and leave us a message. Be social with us on our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV Facebook page, or follow us at Tuning Into Sci-Fi on Twitter.
You've been listening to Small Council Matters from Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, episode 119, recorded August 13th, 2024.